People always ask me what it feels like to disappear from your own life. The truth is, it feels like freedom. For 5 years, I gave everything to my marriage. I gave Meredith my heart, my trust, my future. She repaid me by sneaking around with a man she met at her gym. When I found out she expected tears, arguments, maybe some begging. What she did not expect was silence. Complete absolute silence. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply vanished from her life like I had never existed. And when her family came knocking on my door demanding answers, they discovered something terrifying. I had already thought of everything. Before we get into this story, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button if you have ever had to walk away from someone who did not deserve you. And make sure you subscribe, because what Meredith and her family did when they realized I was not coming back will leave you speechless. Now let me tell you how this all started. My name is Brennan. I am 32 years old and I grew up in a small town outside of Denver, Colorado. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona after college for a job in logistics management. I am not the flashy type. I drive a 10-year-old truck, I prefer home-cooked meals over restaurants, and I have always believed that a man's word should mean something. My father raised me to be dependable, to show up for the people I love. That is exactly what I did for Meredith, every single day for 5 years. I met Meredith at a friend's barbecue 6 years ago. She was 24, then working as a dental hygienist at a practice across town. She had auburn hair that caught the sunlight and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. When she looked at me that afternoon, something shifted inside my chest. I asked for her number before I left. She gave it to me with a grin that made my knees weak. We dated for a year before I proposed. I saved for 3 months to buy her a ring she would be proud to wear. The wedding was small but beautiful, held in her parents' backyard under a canopy of string lights. Her father Harold shook my hand and told me to take care of his little girl. Her mother Patricia hugged me and said she always knew Meredith would find a good man. Her brother Garrett slapped me on the back and welcomed me to the family. I meant every word of my vows. I intended to love her forever. For the first few years, things were good. We bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. I worked long hours to provide for us while Meredith built her career. We talked about having children someday, maybe 2 or 3. We had plans. We had dreams. I thought we were building something that would last. The changes started about 8 months before I discovered the truth. Meredith joined a new gym, one of those upscale fitness centers with personal trainers and smoothie bars. She said she wanted to get in better shape, and I supported her completely. I even offered to join with her, but she said she preferred having that time to herself. I respected her space. Looking back, I wish I had paid closer attention. She started coming home later in the evenings. Her phone became an extension of her hand, always buzzing with notifications she would quickly dismiss. She bought new clothes, new perfume, started caring more about her appearance in ways she never had before. When I asked about her day, her answers became vague and distant. I told myself she was just going through a phase. I told myself everything was fine. The night I discovered the truth was unremarkable in every other way. It was a Tuesday. Meredith had gone to bed early, claiming she had a headache. I stayed up watching a game, not really paying attention, just unwinding after a long day at work. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She had left it there when she went upstairs. Normally, I would have ignored it. I had never been the type to snoop through my wife's things. But something made me glance at the screen. The notification was from someone named Tyler. The preview showed just a few words, but those words changed everything. It said, "I cannot stop thinking about last night." My hand trembled as I picked up the phone. I knew her passcode. She had never hidden it from me because she never thought I would look. I opened the message thread and felt my entire world collapse. The messages went back months. Hundreds of them. Flirtatious texts that escalated into explicit conversations. Photos I wish I could burn from my memory. Plans to meet at hotels, at his apartment, even at our house when I was working late. Tyler was a personal trainer at her gym. He was 28, single, and apparently had no problem pursuing married women. I scrolled through message after message, my stomach churning with each revelation. They had inside jokes about me. She had complained about our marriage, called me boring and predictable. She told him I was just a paycheck, someone stable to fall back on while she had her fun. They laughed about how oblivious I was. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I turned off the television. I sat in the dark for hours, not moving, barely breathing. The woman sleeping upstairs was a stranger. The life I thought I had was a lie. But here is the thing about me. I do not explode. I do not make scenes. When I am hurt, I get quiet. I get focused. And I start planning. The next morning, I acted completely normal. I kissed Meredith goodbye before work. I told her I loved her. She smiled and said it back, without even looking up from her coffee. She had no idea that everything had changed. Over the following 3 weeks, I put my plan into motion. I consulted with a divorce attorney in secret, a woman named Ms. Chambers, who came highly recommended for handling difficult cases. She helped me understand my rights and advised me on how to protect my assets. Arizona is a community property state, which meant things could get complicated. I needed to be smart. I started quietly separating our finances. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and began routing portions of my paycheck there. I gathered documentation of everything, all the financial records, property documents, evidence of her affair. I made copies of her text messages using a backup method my attorney suggested. I was building a fortress around myself, brick by brick. I also started looking for a new place to live. I found a small apartment on the other side of the city, somewhere Meredith would never think to look. I signed the lease under just my name. I began moving my personal belongings there gradually. Just a box or two at a time. Items she would never notice were missing. The hardest part was maintaining the facade. Every night I came home to a woman who was betraying me, and I smiled and asked about her day. Every time she told me she was going to the gym, I knew exactly what she was really doing. Every time she said she loved me, I heard the hollowness behind her words, but I kept my composure. I had a plan, and I was going to see it through. I chose a Friday to execute my disappearance. Meredith was scheduled to work until 6, then had plans to go to dinner with her girlfriends. At least, that is what she told me. I suspected she would actually be with Tyler. I took the day off work. As soon as she left that morning, I began the final phase. I loaded my truck with the remaining items I cared about: clothes, personal documents, my father's watch, a few photos from before I met her. I left behind everything we had bought together. I did not want any of it. Those things were part of a life that no longer existed. I removed my name from the utilities. I forwarded my mail to a post office box. I canceled the joint credit cards after paying off my share of the balances. Every trace of my presence in that house was systematically erased. On the kitchen counter, I left 2 things. The first was a manila envelope containing the divorce papers already filled out with my signature. The second was a printed screenshot of her conversation with Tyler, the one where she called me just a paycheck. I did not leave a note. I did not leave an explanation. The evidence spoke for itself. By 4 in the afternoon, I was gone. I drove to my new apartment, unloaded my truck, and sat on the floor of an empty living room. I was 32 years old, starting over with almost nothing. But for the first time in months, I could breathe. Meredith called me that night around 10. I did not answer. She called again. And again. I counted 17 missed calls before midnight. Then came the text messages. They started confused, asking where I was, why I was not home. Then they became frantic. Then angry. Then pleading. I did not respond to any of them. By Saturday morning, her messages had taken on a different tone. She had found the envelope. She had seen the screenshot. She knew that I knew. Her texts shifted between apologies and accusations. She said she was sorry. She said it was a mistake. She said I was overreacting. She said Tyler meant nothing. She said I could not just leave like this. She said we needed to talk. I blocked her number. Over the next few days, I began receiving calls from numbers I did not recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. Meredith's friends left messages demanding to know what happened. Then her brother Garrett called, his voice angry and confused. Then her mother Patricia crying and asking me to please just talk to her daughter. Then her father Harold stern and commanding, telling me I had no right to treat Meredith this way. I did not respond to any of them either. What Meredith and her family did not understand was that I was not punishing her. I was not playing games. I simply had nothing left to say. She made her choices. She spent months lying to my face, disrespecting our marriage, treating me like a fool. Words were meaningless at this point. The only language I had left was silence. 10 days after I left, there was a knock on my apartment door. I had been careful about my new address, but apparently not careful enough. When I opened the door, Harold was standing there, his face red with anger. He pushed past me into the apartment before I could react. He looked around at the sparse furniture, the boxes still unpacked, the obvious signs of a man starting over. Then he turned to face me with fury in his eyes. He demanded to know what I thought I was doing. He said I had no right to abandon his daughter like this. He said whatever problems we had, we should work them out like adults. He said running away was the act of a coward. I let him finish his speech. Then I calmly walked to my kitchen counter and picked up a folder I had prepared for exactly this moment. I handed it to him without saying a word. Harold opened the folder. Inside were printed copies of the messages between Meredith and Tyler. Explicit messages, detailed plans of their meetings, screenshots of her calling me boring, calling me a paycheck, laughing at how easy I was to deceive. I watched Harold's face change as he read. The anger drained away, replaced by something like shock, then disgust, then shame. His hands trembled as he turned page after page. When he finally looked up at me, he could not meet my eyes. I told him I did not owe his daughter anything. I told him I had given her 5 years of my life, 5 years of faithfulness and hard work and devotion. I told him she threw it all away for a personal trainer she met at the gym. I told him the only coward in this situation was the woman who did not have the courage to end our marriage honestly before starting another relationship. Harold tried to speak, but no words came out. He set the folder down on my counter. He stood there for a long moment looking at the floor. Then he said something I did not expect. He apologized. He said he did not know. He said if he had known, he never would have come here. I told him to leave. He did, without another word. 2 days later, I received a text from Patricia. She said Harold had told her everything. She said she was ashamed of her daughter. She said she understood why I left, and she did not blame me. She asked me to forgive her for the angry voicemail she had left earlier. I read her message but did not respond. I appreciated her words, but I was not looking for reconciliation with any member of that family. A week after that, Garrett showed up at my workplace. He caught me in the parking lot after my shift. Unlike his father, he did not come with accusations. He came with an apology. He said Meredith had finally admitted the truth to the family. She had tried to minimize it at first, claiming it was just a one-time mistake. But when confronted with the evidence, she could not maintain the lie. Garrett told me his sister had been crying for days, begging anyone who would listen to help her get me back. She said she had made a terrible mistake. She said she loved me. She said she would do anything to fix things. I asked Garrett if she had stopped seeing Tyler. He hesitated before answering. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Even now, even after losing her marriage, She could not let go of the man she had chosen over me. I told Garrett that his sister made her choice a long time ago. I was simply respecting that choice by removing myself from the equation. I wished him well and walked to my truck. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Meredith tried to contest it at first, but with the evidence I had gathered, her attorney advised her to settle. She got half of our shared assets, which was fair under the law. I kept my retirement accounts and walked away clean. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Tyler ended things with her shortly after the divorce. Apparently, he was not interested in a woman who was no longer forbidden. Meredith moved back in with her parents at 30 years old, trying to piece her life back together. I felt nothing when I heard this news. No satisfaction, no pity, nothing at all. She had become irrelevant to me. The first few months after my divorce were harder than I expected. Even though I was the one who left, even though I knew I had made the right decision, there were nights when the loneliness felt crushing. I would lie awake in my small apartment staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had ended up here. 5 years of my life gone. A future I had planned erased. A woman I had loved transformed into a stranger, but slowly, day by day, things began to improve. I focused on my work and earned a promotion that came with a significant raise. I started going to the gym myself, not out of vanity, but because the physical activity helped clear my mind. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage, guys who welcomed me back without judgment. One of those friends, Joel, had gone through a similar situation years earlier. His first wife had cheated on him with a coworker. He understood the specific kind of pain I was experiencing, the betrayal, the self-doubt, the anger that sometimes surfaced without warning. We would meet for beers on Friday nights, and he would let me talk through whatever I was feeling. He never offered advice unless I asked for it. He just listened. That friendship became an anchor during my darkest moments. I also started seeing a therapist, something I never would have considered before. But I recognized that I was carrying wounds that needed professional attention. I did not want to become bitter. I did not want to let Meredith's betrayal define how I viewed relationships for the rest of my life. My therapist helped me process the grief, the anger, the sense of failure that clung to me, even though I knew logically that none of this was my fault. Around the 8-month mark, something shifted inside me. I woke up one Saturday morning and realized I had not thought about Meredith in days. The constant ache in my chest had faded without me noticing. The memories that used to cut like knives now felt distant, like scenes from a movie I had watched long ago. I adopted a dog, a 3-year-old rescue named Biscuit, who had been abandoned by his previous owners. He was anxious at first, unsure of his new environment, slow to trust. I understood exactly how he felt. We healed together, taking long walks through the neighborhood, establishing routines that gave both of us stability. That dog became my best friend. About a year after my divorce, I was at a coffee shop near my apartment when I struck up a conversation with a woman in line ahead of me. Her name was Tessa. She was 30, a graphic designer, with an easy smile and kind eyes. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing in particular, and when I asked for her number, she gave it to me without hesitation. I was not looking for a relationship. I was not sure I was ready. But Tessa was patient. She had been through her own difficult experiences and understood that trust takes time to rebuild. We dated slowly, without pressure or expectations. She met Biscuit, and he loved her immediately, which I took as a good sign. As I write this, it has been almost 2 years since I ghosted my cheating wife and walked away from everything I thought my life would be. I am not going to pretend I have everything figured out. Some days the old wounds still ache. Some nights I still wonder if I could have done something differently. But I know this with certainty. Walking away was the best decision I ever made. Not because it was easy. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. But because it forced me to confront a truth I had been avoiding. I deserved better than what Meredith was willing to give me. I deserved honesty. I deserved respect. I deserved a partner who would choose me every single day the same way I chose her. If there is one lesson I want you to take from my story, it is this. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And when you realize you are in a situation that is destroying you, you have every right to leave. You do not owe explanations to people who did not value you. You do not owe closure to people who gave you nothing but lies. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. Close the door. Block the number. Start over. It feels like death at first, the death of a dream, the death of who you thought you were. But on the other side of that, death is resurrection. On the other side is a life you get to build on your own terms, with people who actually deserve to be in it. Meredith thought I would argue with her. She thought I would cry, scream, maybe even take her back after she apologized enough times. She thought she could control the narrative, play the victim, convince everyone that I was the unreasonable one. What she did not anticipate was the possibility that I might simply refuse to participate, that I might take my dignity and my future and walk away without giving her the satisfaction of a single tear. Her family came for me, expecting to find a coward. Instead, they found a man who knew his worth, and that made all the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who did not deserve you? Or maybe you are in a situation right now where you know you need to leave, but you are scared to take that first step. Share your story in the comments below. This community is built on real experiences, and your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button. It helps more people find these videos and reminds me that sharing these experiences matters. If you are not subscribed yet, join this family. We post real stories about real life every week, and I would love to have you here. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know who might be struggling in silence, who might need permission to finally walk away from a situation that is breaking them. Thank you for being here with me today. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Whatever you are facing in your own life, I hope you remember this. You are worthy of love that does not require you to sacrifice your self-respect. You are worthy of honesty. You are worthy of peace. Take care of yourselves. Give yourselves grace, and I will see you in the next one.